Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Fractal's been absolutely killing it with cases over the last few years, and here at Computex 2023, actually we're filming this before we go, but we're checking out a brand new case from Fractal, something that you're probably not expecting. It's called the Fractal Terra. It's a 10.4 litre small form factor case with a couple really cool tricks up its sleeve. Sounds kind of musical when you slam it like that, right? Let's play a little riff. And here's a few words from this year's Computex sponsors. Well, they're actually my words. Let's take a closer look. Our Computex Taipei 2023 coverage is proudly brought to you by ASUS and ROG, the Republic of Gamers. You can find links to their products in the video description. Alright, panel removal. Very simple on the Terra. It's got a little cutout here. You can just pull the side panel and you lift up the side panel. It's kind of like gullwing doors, I suppose. And to pull the whole panel away, there's a little latch and you push that latch in and pull the whole panel away. Basically, it's got this little, let's call it a knob, that hooks into the chassis itself. The other side is exactly the same. Lift the panel up, push the clip in, and pull the panel away from the case. For top panel removal, there's this little, let's call it a leatherette pull, and essentially you just pull this towards you, unclips the panel, and then you can lift it away from the case. For power supply support, you're looking at SFX and SFXL power supplies. However, the bracket that holds the power supply in is completely removable, and it can also be adjusted to change the offset depending on what size small form factor power supply you use. So this is the default height that it's on now, but it can be lowered if you've got a slightly smaller power supply or you want to increase the clearance above the power supply as well. For drive support, this doesn't support any 3.5 inch drives, pretty standard for small form factor cases. However, you can do two 2.5 inch SSDs in this case if you like. This mount at the front of the Velcro is actually a drive mount, and there's also drive mounting options on the bottom of the case as well. Because this is such a small case, being only 10.4 liters, your fan and radiator mounting is quite limited. So on this panel here, on the opposite side, you could do a 120mm liquid cooler. However, you'd need to have a short GPU for that to work. But in any configuration, you can do a regular 120mm fan on the bottom of the case as well for intake. For motherboard support, you're looking at an ITX motherboard only, maybe DTX, but they don't specify that at all. But ITX will definitely fit in the Fractal Terra. Included in the case is this PCIe Gen 4 riser cable. This is pretty standard for these sandwich layout cases to have this cable included in the box and pre-installed in the case. For case wiring, we've got a USB Type-C front panel connector, USB 3.2 Type-A front panel connector, and the connector for the power button. Like we saw with the Fractal North, the front panel is actually wood. This isn't a covering, this is a solid piece of wood that is part of the front panel of the case. In saying that, we've got a power button, a USB Type-A port, and a USB Type-C port. No front panel audio. There's the internal power cable, which is an extension cable for your power supply, because like most other small form factor cases, there is a power connection for your power cable on the outside of the case. Look, I get it. Everything you're seeing here is pretty standard small form factor stuff, but it does have a really huge trick up its sleeve that you might not be expecting. Check this out. The keen-eyed folks out there may have noticed these orange plastic bits. That's because if we remove the screw that holds those plastic bits in, it reveals the Terra's biggest secret. There's also two more of these on the bottom as well. If you look closely, there's measurements from 1 to 7. What the Terra enables us to do when we remove those screws is change the entire internal offset of the case. What do I mean by that? Well, if say for instance, you had a really low profile CPU cooler and you had a really big GPU and your offset wasn't looking to crash hot, we can change this simply by pushing the internal frame to the left or the right. If you're in this configuration for your CPU cooler, you're looking at 77 millimeters, whereas you're dropping this down to 42 mil of clearance, and it basically just inverses all of that as you move it to the other side. So 42 mil, 77 mil. This means you can fit up to a 3.5 slot GPU on this side and a very low profile cooler if you wanted to do it that way. But there is a balance between the two, because for some low profile coolers, you'll find yourself being able to adjust it to have a 3-slot GPU and a decently sized CPU cooler. Keeping all of that in mind, what's the deal with GPU clearance? Let me show you. First of all, we've got the Gigabyte 4080 Aero, and it doesn't fit. Right? It is physically longer than the case, and there's nothing you could do to make this GPU fit. However, say you had a 4090 Founders Edition, check this out. Easily fits in with no problem and with room to spare. The Fractal Terra has a maximum GPU clearance of 322 millimeters. So there are actually quite a few GPUs that you can make fit very easily without sacrificing too much. The other thing to take into account is that 12-volt high power connector. A right-angled connector will make this fit easily. I would almost say you could get away with not using a right-angled connector. Another interesting thing to mention is the offset that I have the case in now is the default offset for the Terra when you pull it out of the box. This means that even with the 4090, if I just rotate this a little, you can see that the side panel will easily fit on here, and the GPU will probably sit right up against it. But that's the benefit of having a vented side panel, is that that doesn't really matter. It won't impede the airflow that much. One thing I wanted to mention as well is if you're using a card like a Founders card with this cooler design, you'll want to install your power supply this way, so the air from the GPU can go into the power supply fan and then pushed out the top of the case. If you have it this way, you will be blocking the airflow, but at least in this configuration, you're not leaving any cooling capacity on the table. That's everything I think you need to know about the Fractal Terra for now. Let's do our usual thing. Let's do a build with it. This could possibly be the first build of the Fractal Terra on all of YouTube. Pretty cool, right? Let's see what makes this thing tick and do all the tests. Why not? All right, let's take a look at the thermals. What you're seeing on your screen right now is the thermals are pretty good, but take into account, this case is basically open, especially with the grill on all panels on this case. It's got quite a bit of airflow. There is a little bit of restriction on the CPU cooler side. Also, the CPU thermals are pretty good, but the 7800X3D doesn't run very hot. And that's kind of the whole point as to the reason why I wanted to use this CPU for this build, is because this CPU doesn't run hot as it is. And I think it might be the perfect CPU for a small form factor PC like this. You're getting buttloads of performance and it's just not heating up with an average cooler, right? That's the whole point of it. As far as all the hardware that was used in here, there's little cards through those parts of the video so you can see what all of that is, and there'll be a PC part pick list down below if you want to see what everything is as well. The thing is, when you're building with small cases like this, and especially something this small, you need to plan every single component that you're looking at installing, and I hope this kind of helps you get an idea of what you can fit. The main limiting thing I can see with the Terra is going to be CPU cooler options. There are lots of low profile coolers, so if you are looking at building in this, and you know what, I'm probably preaching to the choir here because all the small form factor peeps out there know exactly what they're getting into, but be aware that you really need to pick the right CPU and cooler combo. And I'm very surprised at how well the 7800X3D went with thermals in this instance. Even though we have reviewed the CPU and have found that the CPU thermals are quite good on any cooler, I just didn't realize they'd be this good with this little scythe cooler. What do I think about the Fractal Terra now that we can review it? This thing's been sitting here since January. It's been here a very, very long time. The build quality is excellent. It's so, so good. Fractal absolutely nailed it once again with a new case. They're on a bit of a winning streak here. The material used is so nice. The hinge doors, very, very cool and very, very nice. Just makes it easier to get access when you're wanting to do things or change anything. And overall, I gotta say it, Fractal killed it. They did it again. They made a very, very cool 10.4 litre ITX case. As well as all of that, Fractal's shown us that they really care about attention to detail with their cases, especially with these wood panels. Now, this case comes in a bunch of different colors. I think there's a black variant, a silver variant, and a jade variant. Is that what it is, Claire?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. This is the jade variant. When they asked what color I wanted, I was like, give me the wildest color you got. And there's only 3, so this is obviously the wildest choice. As far as pricing and availability goes, the Fractal Terra is launching at the time of this video going live. That's what they said to us anyway. But for pricing, we don't know what that is yet. So I guess I'll put it in a pinned comment in case you watch this at a later time and the pricing's been announced. But right now, I have no idea what it's going to be. But if I had to guess, actually, I'm not going to guess because I don't know how much this is going to cost. I have no clue. And I have other cases probably to base it on, but I'm not making any guesses here because I just don't know. And I'd rather you guys get the right information, so we'll just add that to the description and the pinned comment. Future Nick, Mr. Time Machine Guy, add it. Like I always say, it's a time machine, Claire. We get to travel through time, through YouTube. And all of our other content, I probably have much shorter hair. Much, much shorter hair. Anyways, if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available by clicking that join button right down there down below. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I am your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peak, we seek. And make sure you subscribe to see all of our Computex content that is currently trickling into your sub feed. There's probably lots of really cool stuff that you're watching right now, and probably lots of really cool cases from every part of everywhere. I don't know what I'm saying. Thanks for watching. It's so hard. Wait, you're recording all that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, my hair's not my hair.
I can see it.
What do you mean?
There's a tuft there.
Yeah, but that's fashion. By the time they see this video, Claire,
I would have had a haircut. Why must I put up with this constant abuse? I feel like a cat when you do that. You know, it's like, and you pat me. Yeah, when you do that to Bindi, she's like,